Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile found...
Good evening. I'm your host, Dr. William Lester. The Shadowland radio show is proud to present The World of Shadows, Chapter 2. I share my story with others who will not criticize me or claim that I'm a liar. I'm not much of a storyteller either, so I assure you that this story is 100% absolutely true. It all began when my 13-year-old daughter Lily and I went to New Jersey in the summer of 2013. We were visiting my sister Judith and her new husband for the summer. Their house isn't like those old creepy houses with cobwebs hanging in the doorway. It's a beautiful 2-story house that was built just the year before. I suspected nothing would ever go wrong until I met my sister's husband, Ryan's cousin, who was staying with them until he got over his major cocaine addiction. I never let my daughter go near him or stray out of my sight. Lily is a bright, beautiful, and charming young girl, but her fatal flaw is that she's always too trusting of the people around her. As a mom, that adds to my list of reasons that I'm so protective over her. The summer was starting out great. The house had a large pool that was wonderful because it was indoors. The house formed a sort of courtyard around the pool, and it was where we lounged on chairs and enjoyed the summer. It was about 2 weeks later when Lily was swimming in the pool. It was just us there, and I was sitting at the edge of the pool when I saw Ryan's cousin staring down at Lily from one of the windows. I was literally freaking the hell out. I grabbed Lily and wrapped a towel quickly around her. My motherly instincts kept telling me something was wrong about that man, and I'll never forget the way he looked at my daughter. In the weeks to come, bad things began to occur. Lily wasn't the same at all. She would mumble nonsense words and didn't like to go out of the room either. One night, I decided to go see her. I opened her room door and she was gone. It was late and I frantically searched the house for her. When I passed Greg's, Ryan's cousin's room, I heard Lily's voice from inside. I slowly turned the knob and saw the scariest thing in my entire life. Lily was lying on the floor in only her underclothes, and Greg was reading from an old leather book in a language I've never heard before. Just as I opened my mouth to yell bloody murder, a dark mass collected and hovered over, growing larger with each second. I bolted towards Lily, swooped her up in my arms, and ran out to my car as fast as I possibly could. As I was putting a blanket over her, I heard her whispering, "Book of Demons," over and over again. As long as Greg is still there, I refuse to visit Judith at that house. Days later, I had Lily blessed by a priest, and since then, not once did she ever mutter those words, "Book of Demons." All my life I've had tiny snippets, almost 2-second slideshows of dreams that have become reality. Some almost a decade later. I've become accustomed to this. It wasn't until I was 19 that I learned I could also see and interact with others. My first experience is still the scariest. I was sleeping in my bedroom, a long week of studying for finals in my freshman year behind me. I woke up, the thought, he's going to touch me. Oh my God, he's going to hurt me, screaming through my mind. I was groggy and confused. I looked towards my door, seeing only the barest of outlines, a rather large male. I thought I was just having a nightmare. I closed my eyes, trying to convince myself it was nothing more than my overactive imagination. My eyes popped open just as this face of an older man, late 40s, came close, his features contorted into a snarl. The outside of my right thigh, I was lying on my left side, began to spasm as intense pain speared through me. I passed out from the pain. I woke the next morning to find a huge bruise in the form of a handprint on the outside of my right thigh. It took more than a month to heal. The next night I was terrified to sleep, sitting up in my bed reading. I heard footsteps just outside my window. I got out of bed, looked out the window, thinking that perhaps a deer was walking through our yard. After all, we did live in a heavily wooded area. I saw nothing. The steps would start up and retreat. I'm not sure at what point I fell asleep. During my dream, I saw a young Native American male in World War II style clothing. In my dream, he told me his name was James, that he was my self-appointed guardian. He also told me to call upon him for protection and to do it quickly. I woke up mumbling and begging for his help. Since that original contact, I have called on James many times and have found that he does help me when needed, answers my questions in typical spirit fashion, but is always correct. I've also been free of pain from the spirits that have tried to barge in and harm myself and my family. I had my first paranormal experience at the house I grew up in. I was not very old, about 4. I remember it like it was yesterday and so vivid. I often walk by the house just to reminisce. I remember that I was outside in the front garden. I had not been long outside when I looked beyond our garden fence, which had a grass bank, which was where I spotted what looked like a black hole, midair, seconds after noticing that the vivid and solid yet dark entity manifested. I could not believe what I was seeing. In broad daylight. The entity then began to move toward me. I watched it as it smoothly floated. It did not appear as if it was walking, just gliding, and stopped. And there it was, floating above our garden fence. It's quite obvious that this entity once walked on grounds which no longer exist. It makes my mind run wild thinking about what it would have looked like. As for the black hole in midair, I like to think it was some sort of portal. This solid figure was also really rather menacing, especially for a 4-year-old. It wore a black robe. The robe had long bell sleeves and it draped over its feet. His hands and feet were covered by it, also by a hood. The hood darkened its face. This paranormal being was so vivid that I even noticed the robe was torn at the bottom where it draped around its feet, and it even looked torn at the ends of the sleeves. Now that I'm older, to me this apparition reminds me of a monk. Only monks wear brown robes, don't they? I cannot help but that this spirit was evil, or even satanic. Maybe a group of Satanists gathered there. I would just love to know who and what it was, what it did, and why his robe was so black. After I ran away from it, because I was so frightened, after a few minutes I returned to the front garden and it was no longer there. I always wondered if it would appear there again, but it never did. Not in my presence anyway. I do believe the spirit I saw fits in with a few other things, a few other stories, which are connected to that house. The house was haunted by several astral beings, though. That was not the only apparition my mother and I experienced there. She did not witness this specific apparition, though. It has been a source of complete terror for me all these years. My name is Katharina. I work in a grocery shop in Louisiana. The experience which I am going to share is true and horrid. I usually do night shift to earn extra money. Last month, I was about to close the shop when a man in a black suit came and asked for a bottle of soft drink. I was very tired and was sleepy too, so before noticing his face or something, I handed him the bottle, and he paid and went away. I closed the shop and hurried home. On my way, I saw that same man following, but this time, he was all skinny, as if he had taken off his old clothes and was walking straight towards me. I was really scared. I wanted to scream, but it was as if I was mummed. I stepped quickly, short of running, towards my home and suddenly saw the man was flying. It was terrible, a horrifying scene. I prayed to God to give me death instead. I was so terrified and scared I began to shake. I was drenched in sweat and the man began to nod and laugh, an evil laugh. I ran. By hook or by crook, I reached home that night. It was so painful for me, not a single moment I slept. I just remembered the face of that evil creature. The next day I again went to the shop and the same thing happened. I didn't tell this to anyone as no one would believe me. For the last month, the same thing is happening again and again. It follows me home and then disappears. I'm a strong believer in God, so why is this happening to me? Please, I'm out of my mind. It's ruining my life. I can't take it anymore. Sometimes I think about suicide, but then I think of my family depending on me. Please, somebody out there help me. Please show me a way to get rid of this. I can't live my life this way. I am only 22. I'm supposed to enjoy my life. This thing has totally ruined me. It has become hell. Someone, please help me. When my son was 2, he started to talk about spirits. He would tell me they were in his room and they wanted to play with him. Once when he was 3, he was playing on the floor with his cards when all of a sudden he jumped to his feet and looked at me and asked, "Who's that, Mommy? Who's that little boy?" I peeked around the corner to where he was pointing and didn't see anything, so I asked him, "What little boy?" There was no one there. He started to cry and kept saying to me, "Help him, Mommy, he's lost. Help him. He can't find his Mommy." I didn't know what to do. He continued to talk about ghosts, and I thought maybe he was just playing around. But at 2 and 3 years old, I don't know if he could make something up like that. Anyway, we moved to a basement apartment, and right from the first day, he talked of a little girl and something dark with red eyes. He was afraid to be alone in a room. One night, my cousin and I cleaned his room and I put him to bed. About 2 hours later, he woke up screaming in terror. I ran in and tried to calm him. He just kept saying, "Don't let the big black thing with red eyes get me. Don't let him get me." I swore I heard a growling sound through his screams, so I asked him to be quiet for a minute. He did. That's when I heard a very loud growling sound. It sounded like it was right by my head, and it was so loud I had to plug my ears. It was way too loud to be an animal. When I stopped, I screamed for my cousin to come in. She did, and I told her to sit on the chair at the end of the bed and just listen for a minute. After about 3 or 4 minutes, we heard it again, and it was so loud it felt like the room shook. My cousin was so scared, she jumped from the chair to the bed, and we all huddled there, scared to death. We moved the next day and never went back. Though we never heard it again, my son still talks about spirits. I feel bad because I told him it scares me, so he stopped telling me. He is 9 now, and I haven't heard him say anything since he was 5. But the other day he walked up to someone and said, You see them too." The guy smiled, nodded, and walked away. What is going on with my son, and how do I deal with this? It scares the hell out of me. I'm a firm believer in all of this, having been brought up around the spirits. What I'm about to tell you happened to me about 4 years ago. I was staying in Botswana with my dad and stepmom. When I used to go to bed at night, I would lay in bed and watch TV and often felt like someone was sitting on the end of the bed. You could see the indentation on the mattress, and it used to freak me out. On this one particular night, I went to bed as normal and all seemed to be okay. It was around 12 or just after when I woke up to go to the bathroom. As I got up, I felt something grab my thighs on the inside and hold my legs open. I started to scream, and the cat was in the corner hissing, and his hair was standing up. I couldn't see anyone on top of me, not sure how long it lasted, but I remember I still stood up, switched the light on, went to the bathroom, and thought to myself, did that just happen? In the morning, you could see bruises on my thigh, and I asked my father, "Did you not hear me shouting last night?" Our rooms were right next door to each other. He said he heard a soft noise, but didn't think anything of it. I don't know what happened to me that night, or what it was, but I do know it was real, and it felt like I was going to be raped with the way my thighs were grabbed and held down. I'm terribly afraid that this dark thing will return one night and attack me again. When I was around 10 years old, I had some friends over for a birthday sleepover. It was around 3 in the morning, and we got hungry, so we went to my kitchen and began to make sandwiches. When I looked outside of my sliding glass door, I saw something on my porch, silhouetted in the darkness. I turned on the porch light and had the life scared out of me. There was a huge thing on my porch. It was a man-sized dog-looking thing with these glowing reddish-yellow eyes, huge fangs, and its body was pink and hairless. It dashed off into my field at the sight of me, and I swore I saw it turn into a human and keep running. My friend saw it, but not the part where it turned into a man. Okay, fast forward about 7 years, April 20th, 2014. It was 2 a.m. and I had a few friends over, and I heard something on my porch yet again. I looked out of the window and couldn't see anything. I looked at my friends, shrugged, then looked back out the window. A face appeared out of nowhere, and I fell back in shock. I looked back out of the window to see the person running away, but he turned into something with a tail and 4 legs and kept running down my driveway. Nobody else saw him transform this time either. Then just a few nights ago, I saw it again. I was downstairs making a sandwich in the middle of the night, and I realized somebody was trying to open the sliding glass door from the outside. I turned on the porch light, and there it was. Something about 6 feet tall, with the head, arms, and legs of a fox or a wolf, clutching a tall medicine staff. It was pawing at the outside of the door, near the handle, trying to get in. Its face was painted with what I came to learn were traditional Navajo symbols. I live near a reservation. And its entire body was covered. I fell over and then scrambled back upstairs, where I clutched a knife in my bed for the rest of the night. I think I'm being stalked by an ancient Anasazi witch, otherwise known as a Skinwalker. I'm scared to sleep or look out my window at night, and I don't know what to do. And that concludes another edition of the Shadowland radio show. Thank you for listening to the program. I want to remind you that the show can be heard on the Blackwater Media YouTube channel. It can also be heard on the Blackwater Media Facebook page, Pinterest, and Google+. When you go to the Blackwater Media YouTube channel, remember to like, subscribe, and share. I'm Dr. William Lester reminding you that I will see each and every one of you again on the flip side.